Good evening and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. And as always, we're back with another massive show to bring you all this evening. But before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel, bottom right hand corner, if you are watching this show for the first time today. On the show this evening, we're going to be talking about a new bit of information coming up around Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid. And apparently Sir Jim Ratcliffe is actually trying to buy 50% of Manchester United, opposed to the 25% that we have been talking about over the last couple of days. We'll be talking about that, and we'll also be reacting to a new update from Fabrizio Romano this afternoon, ultimately saying that Qatar are 100% out of the race to buy Manchester United. We will, of course, talk about that. We'll, of course, about lots of other things on the show this evening. Please do make sure to get involved in the comments section, get involved in the live chat. Let me know your thoughts on everything we discuss on today's show, as always. Right, well, let's start off with the story from Fabrizio Romano then. So obviously this morning we spoke a little bit about the report coming out from Sky Sports saying that they thought that if Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid wasn't accepted at board level, remember, there's a board meeting this Thursday, which should ultimately decide whether his bid will be accepted. If that wasn't accepted, Sky Sports was saying yesterday that they felt that maybe Sheikh Jassim might come back into the picture. Okay, obviously that's been said. We spoke about that on the show this morning. Now, Fabrizio Romano has put a tweet out earlier on today. This was 3 hours ago. He says, sources close to Sheikh Jassim guarantee that his decision to leave the negotiations for Manchester United is 100% guaranteed and confirmed. No current plans to change that. It says Glazer family already informed last week after the final bid was rejected. Now, some people are saying that there was a final bid last week. Other journalists are saying there wasn't. It's very, very confusing. It's very difficult to keep up with. And it's been like that throughout the whole process. But let me know what you guys think. Ultimately, it's very, very frustrating. It is. You know, I know that a lot of you, minus maybe one or two, wanted Sheikh Jassim to take over the club. You know that was my stance on this channel over the last 10 months of this process. It does look like he is out of the race, to be honest with you. Obviously, things can change in football. Fabrizio Romano does say no current plans to change that, i.e. there's no current plans for him to re-enter the race. But as Sky Sports was saying yesterday, you know, if something goes wrong with the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid, maybe they do come back. Who knows? Obviously, these are all hypotheticals, so who knows at this point? We'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. But let me know what you guys think about that. I know that most of you in this fan base, in this community, were really, really keen on Sheikh Jassim. Some of you weren't, some of you were. Yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? Everybody has an opinion. I'm always going to respect other people's opinions on this channel. I'm always happy to have those conversations with people. We only had two offers on the table. One was for 100% and one was for 25%. And for me, I will always go for the one that clears the debt and, you know, means 100% of the club, because that's what I think is best for Manchester United. It's not a situation like Chelsea where they had 5 people offering 100% of the club. You know, then you could go into the whole thing of what's better morally, you know, sports washing, greenwashing. You start looking at all the individuals and you can start making judgment. But in the sense of Manchester United, in the sense of our situation, it was one person offering to clear all the debt and buy 100% and one person offering whatever the Glazers would take to get them into bed with them. So those are the two different stances, aren't they? Let's see what everyone's saying in the chat this evening. Welcome to everybody. I hope you are all doing well. Answer says we will regret it if Sheikh Jassim buys Liverpool. Yes, I agree. Fred says let's hope the board sees sense and vote the Ratcliffe's proposal off the table. I mean, it is a possibility. It's on Thursday, apparently, the vote. 12 people, 6 Glazers, and they need to apparently have a 90% overall vote. Joe says, what do you think the Nice fans would say if Sir Jim Ratcliffe were to spend on a new stadium or buying marquee players and the Nice fans are going to feel like the club is being discarded? I mean, those stories have already been written. Throughout the summer, there was Nice fans saying that they were disappointed about, the lack of love that he'd been showing them because of this potential buying of Manchester United. And I'm sure that I think that if he buys Manchester United, he'll look to sell Nice personally. That's just my opinion. But if I was him, I would sell Nice and just put all of your focus on Manchester United. You know, there's no point having a football club that, yes, they're a second in the French league, but they haven't finished in the top 4 since he's been there. There was one thing that I wanted to talk about actually and react to. So Matt Hughes, who writes for, I believe it is the Daily Mail in the UK, has been publishing this headline this morning, right, saying that apparently Sir Jim Ratcliffe's plans to complete a radical overhaul of Manchester United's football department are set to be welcomed by Erik ten Hag as part of his desire to raise the standards at the club. Now, I wanted to react to that, and I wanted to kind of fight back at that and call it out, to be honest, because I don't really understand that, and I don't believe that. Why would Erik ten Hag think that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to raise the standards of Manchester United based on his track record, okay? Yes, he's done well in cycling, but in football, he took over Nice. Before Sir Jim Ratcliffe took over Nice, they got top 4 3 years out of 4, okay? Since Sir Jim Ratcliffe's taken over, they haven't got top 4 once. Yes, there'll be people coming at me in the chat now saying, oh, well, they're second in the French league after 8 games. In 3 or 4 years of his ownership, they've not been in the top 4 once versus being in the top 4 3 out of 4. So I don't really understand how Erik ten Hag would welcome somebody who has got into a club that were in the top 4 and taken them out of the top 4, and that Erik ten Hag isn't aware of that and thinks that he's going to be the one to help him raise the standards. I don't really get that. I think it's just spin, and I think we have to be very, very careful of the news that we read, and that's why channels like this are good. You know, I haven't got any agenda. I'll bring you the news. I'll give you my opinion. I'll read you guys' opinions, and we can all discuss it. Let's have a look what else said. United 90 says, Sheikh Jassim offered 2 times what the club was worth, plus the debt, plus Old Trafford. I can't believe it. Yeah, I agree. Ryan says, it's just Sir Jim Ratcliffe PR to win over the fans. I mean, it is, isn't it? It is exactly that. It's just Sir Jim Ratcliffe PR that he's probably been given to put out there. Ruben says Jim will buy players from Nice to play for United. I mean, even that, like, Jean-Claire Todibo looks like an all right player. I wouldn't say he's world class. I'd say he's on the level of Lindelof, personally. People, again, are probably going to come at me and say, what the hell are you talking about? But do you really think Jean-Claire Todibo is one of the best centre-backs in world football? I don't, personally. I think he's all right. And I don't think he's much better than Lindelof, personally. But that's just my opinion from what I've seen of him. And maybe he'll turn into the best player in the world. But, you know, the best centre-backs in the world are people like Gavardiol that City have just bought. People like, I mean, this Antonio Silva guy from Benfica, he'll be the best centre-back in the world in the next 3 to 5 years. You know, those are the types of people we should be looking at. Scott says, is he allowed to bring in players from Nice because he owns them? That's the other thing as well, right? People are like, oh, happy days, we'll get Thuram, we'll get Jean-Claire Todibo in January. You realise that UEFA's rules have softened around multi-club ownership. So clubs are allowed to have the same owner. But apparently, clubs are not able to sell players to a club if it's owned by the same person, if they're then going to compete in the same European competition. So if Sir Jim Ratcliffe gets Nice in the top 4 this season, if Manchester United were in the top 4, which I don't think we would be able to, Jean-Claire Todibo and Thuram wouldn't be able to play. It just doesn't really make any sense, does it? Let's see what else people are saying quickly before we move on. Prince Ramsey says this is just the greed of the Glazers. Giles says, where does this rumour of Jassim buying Liverpool come from? The dude is a hardcore United fan. There's no links to Liverpool at the moment. The only club that he's supposedly interested in is Tottenham. That was what was being reported today, that apparently Sir Jim Ratcliffe is interested in buying Tottenham. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know, to be honest. I think that trying to buy a club off Daniel Levy would be just as difficult as buying a club off the Glazers. Digital Sports Update says Jean-Claire Todibo is not a world-class centre-back. I agree. I don't think he is. He wasn't my number 1 target in the summer. I think there was definitely better options out there. I even went as far as saying that I thought for a short-term fix, Benjamin Pavard would have been a better option because he could have played at centre-back and right-back. And I think that argument's kind of been proved now. The fact that we didn't even have a fit left-back for the last month, Benjamin Pavard could have come in really handy, couldn't he? So, yeah, I'm not that bothered about Jean-Claire Todibo and Thuram. I'm really not. Maybe they'll come in and they'll do well, but I don't think they're world-class, either of them, personally. Ryle says, the point I'm making is Sir Jim Ratcliffe is only buying 25%. Someone must be market shares, so he's not buying them out, and one of them 4 holds the largest amounts of shares. Right, let's talk about this 50% stake thing really, really quickly, because I think this is super, super important. And yeah, it's a new story that's come out today, and it was one that I was reading earlier, and I was going to do a dedicated video on it, and then I thought I'll save it for this evening show, and we can all discuss it together, because I know a lot of you will be very, very interested in this. So this is in the New York Journal, New York Stock Exchange Journal. So it's a newspaper that predominantly is bought by, like, their demographic is millionaires and billionaires, right? This newspaper, it's all about stocks, it's all about business, it's about finance. It's not something that a normal person, let's say an average person, would read, right? But there's been this photo that's I've seen circulating on Twitter this afternoon, and right, so this is coming out from literally a newspaper that purely focuses on Wall Street, on sales of businesses, on stocks, on things relating to business. It's not a sports magazine or newspaper. It's not a tabloid who tells us that Wayne Rooney's got a new pair of pants or something stupid. It's literally just business. And they are reporting this afternoon, or this morning even, it says that the proposed terms for Sir Jim Ratcliffe are that he is to acquire 25% or more of Manchester United's shares, which are listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and the equivalent amount of voting shares held by the Glazer family. So they are reporting this afternoon that apparently he's actually looking to buy 25% of the shares on the New York Stock Exchange, and also the equivalent amount of shares owned by the Glazer family. So 25% off the Glazers and 25% off the New York Stock Exchange, making them a 50-50 partner, which might be why we're hearing these stories that he's going to become a controlling, that he would be able to control the sporting side of it. Because if they're 50-50, well, actually, no, they wouldn't be 50-50 then. He would have 50% and they would have 44%, because remember the Glazers only own 69%. So yeah, they're reporting that apparently he'll buy 25% of the Glazers 69 and then 25% of the 31% that's held on the New York Stock Exchange, if that makes sense. It then goes on to say, it says the share price couldn't be learned, but it would be at a significant premium to the $20 where the stock closed on Friday. It says Ratcliffe would oversee the team's operations and talent acquisition, while the Glazers would remain in charge of the commercial side of the business. It says that this deal could be announced later this month. Now, I'm going to start a poll on this, okay? Because let's see what everybody thinks about this. Everybody, please do smash a like on the video quickly, and please do subscribe to the channel. Bottom right-hand corner, doesn't cost any money, on the road to 21k subscribers. So please go and do that quickly, and I'm going to set up a poll right now. So just to clarify, New York Wall Street Journal, very, very credible business newspaper. I looked it up earlier just to check the reliability. I'd never heard of it, to be honest, but it says that its demographic are like millionaires and billionaires. Those are the people who read it, not like your average person like me or you. So they are reporting, as I said, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is trying to buy 25% off the New York Stock Exchange and 25% off the Glazers. Now, I'm going to start a poll. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe buys 50% of the club now, 25% off Glazers, 25% off Stock Exchange, would you... Right. There we go. I've just started a poll. It's a little bit long-winded, but I want to make it as detailed as possible. So if it was going to be 50% from the off, okay, and then he was going to buy, the Glazers' remaining shares further down the line, would that change things for you? Let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the live chat and get involved in the poll. Giles says, if he buys 25% of the Glazers' ownership and 25% of the stock exchange, which is 31%, that would mean he owns 25% of the club. That doesn't make sense. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but I think this story is saying that he was going to buy 25%, the whole 25% off the stock exchange, leaving only 6% in there. And does that make sense? That he wanted 25% of the 31% that's available on the New York Stock Exchange, and then buy 25% off the Glazers, making him have a total of 50. Somebody says, how do you buy 25% from stock market with a premium pay? I would assume he'd just approach the people who own the stocks or the companies, the investment banks, and say, I would like to buy your shares, I'll give you a premium on it, and then they'd probably sell them. Eric says, let's say Sir Jim Ratcliffe takes over the football operation and the club perform well. Ain't no way the Glazers will leave. Well, those are the bits of the information that we need to still wait on, isn't it? We need to see what the structure of the deal is, whether there's some sort of agreement that in 3 years' time they'll pay, Sir Jim Ratcliffe will pay them $5 billion or $6 billion. We don't know what the ins and outs of the deal are at this point, but I do think it makes a big difference. I think it makes a big difference to me if he was going to buy 50% now. because then at least he has half of the club and he would be a majority owner. At the same time, we still do have to consider that this could be all just spin. This could be, pro Sir Jim stories. But I just think that something like the New York Wall Street Journal is not something that just puts out stories because of agenda. Like, I just don't think that's what they do, because it's a business thing. But let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section. Let's read out a couple of, it's a bit of a confusing one. It really is. Richie says, something is going on. I'm getting 3 emails per day from my shares broker offering a premium price for my shares way over current value. Well, the fact that this is being printed in this New York Wall Street Journal, right, saying that apparently he's trying to buy the shares off the stock exchange as well. Maybe that's why that you're getting these emails, because like, this isn't a football gossip type of story. This is in a newspaper that focuses on business. It focuses on stocks. It's the Wall Street Journal, which is obviously where the stock exchange is, and it's a newspaper that solely reports on those types of things. If it's 50-50, obviously that maybe makes a bit of a difference. Let's have a look at what the poll's saying. So far, 71% of you says no, it doesn't make any difference. Ryle says it doesn't make sense, but the 25% market shares have no voting rights, only the Glazers do, and 25% would suggest only 2 Glazers want to sell. I mean, that does make sense though, doesn't it? Jay says, what, get 50% of the club for 1.5 billion? No, that's not what's being said here. So he'd buy 25% of the shares that are owned by the Glazers for 1.4 billion pounds, okay? And then he'd buy 25% of the 31% of shares that are owned on the New York Stock Exchange for a premium price. We don't know how much that price will be. Obviously, the price of today, let's have a quick look for you at the stock price. He is $17.6. So it's gone down heavily since it was as low as $16 earlier on today. So it's dropped massively. It's gone down about 26% in the last couple of days, right? So maybe he would offer them $20 a share. That's what this journal article says, that he would offer them, $3 or $4 more than what their share price is worth. I don't know how much that works in a percentage wise. I don't know how many shares are on there exactly. That's far too much maths for one day. But the point is here that he will pay the New York Stock Exchange holders, whoever those 31% people are, a premium on their stocks, meaning he'd have 50% in total. Somebody says, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe buys 50% stake and the club performance improves, who cares if the Glazers are still hanging around? Yeah, I mean, I think as well, right, if he has 50%, I think it does justify him putting money into the stadium, into the infrastructure, and all the rest of it, because that then would make sense. If you owned half of a business, you could see why investing in that business would benefit you. Whereas if you only own 25% of it, it doesn't really make any sense on any level. Why would you invest, billions of pounds in a new stadium if you only own a quarter of something? You'd want a larger piece of the pie. Joe says, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe has more shares than the Glazers, who will provide or where the money will come from a new stadium buying world-class players? Well, the thing you've got to remind yourselves of here, right? Even though he'd own 50% of the club on paper, the Glazers shares are worth way more in voting rights, okay? They own 69% of the club, and he would only be buying 25% of their shares, leaving them with 44%. But their 44% of remaining shares are worth way more in voting rights than the ones on the New York Stock Exchange, if that makes sense. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about all of that. Let me know what your thoughts are. Does your opinion change if he buys 50% of the club opposed to 25%? And let's move on. One more quick thing actually on Sir Jim. If anybody doesn't realise, apparently, well, I knew this already, but Ineos are one of the sponsors of Tottenham, and apparently they will continue sponsoring Tottenham even if they win the bid for Manchester United. So I don't know, that doesn't make a massive difference for me, to be honest, but it is what it is, isn't it? Also, another little quick story as well. Apparently John Murtagh and Richard Arnold are hoping to convince Sir Jim Ratcliffe they can lead the club forward. So they're already worried about their jobs. That would be the first thing I would do if I was Sir Jim Ratcliffe. If he walks into the door and fires John Murtagh and Richard Arnold immediately, I still would be a bit unhappy. Well, I would be unhappy with that we've got Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but I would have a little bit more respect for him immediately. I think he needs to go immediately. And apparently the leading runner for the director of football is Jean Blanc, the former PSG chief executive who joined Ineos in February. He could now be brought into Old Trafford, while the ex-Liverpool recruitment chief Michael Edwards could be another arrival. So there's lots and lots of spin of all of what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to do. He's assembling this super team. He's bringing in all of these special people. we'll have to wait and see. Richie says the shares are down 1.7% today. Yeah, they went down 10% yesterday and then a further 1.7 down today. Tim says it's a posh journal. Their page 3 is more Leonardo DiCaprio than Samantha Fox. Okay. Let's have a look what else people are saying. Paul says, do you think the shareholders will agree to that when under Qatar they were getting near £37 a share? I mean, they don't really have a choice anymore, do they? If what we're being told is true that Sheikh Jassim's walked away, it's either they accept a premium on their shares now or they get nothing. And it could potentially go as low as, I mean, if you flash back to February last year, right, the shares were at $10. So even for them to be at $16, $17, yes, it's going down, but it's still way more than what it was, you know, about 18 months ago. So I'm sure they have that in the back of their head, and I'm sure that an opportunity to cash out would be received well by them. But let me know what you guys think about that. Obviously, we've got a game on Saturday. That's the big thing. I mean, we haven't talked about football for what seems like a lifetime. Game on Saturday, 8 o'clock kickoff. Apparently, Casemiro has been training again with the Brazil squad. If anybody missed it, he did apparently pick up an injury in the last international game, but is back and is now training, which is really, really positive because I know a lot of you have, you know, got a little bit fed up with Casemiro, but I do still think he's such an important player, and I will really, really be disappointed if he isn't able to play in that match, especially when, you know, our midfield is looking a little bit light at the moment. But let me know what you guys think about that. There's a story coming out as well this afternoon saying that apparently Newcastle United are interested in signing Jadon Sancho. Maybe. We'll have to see what happens with that. I've kind of lost interest in Jadon Sancho, to be honest with you. I know he needs to go. I know that's the best option for everybody. Whether or not that happens, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. LP says the Super League will come. Ginge says he needs to own 50% of the 69% the Glazers own to be equal. Yeah, that's the thing. Even if he owns 50% of the club, the Glazers would still have the majority because their shares are worth more and their voting rights are worth more. Michael Edwards has reiterated that he's not interested in a job in football as he is exploring new opportunities. Okay. Jeff says, I don't understand why they want to stay, knowing the hate between them and all the fans. I agree with that. Joe says, to be fair to Nice, Sir Jim should sell the French club, and if he did so, I would have a bit more respect for Sir Jim. I agree with that. You know, if he sells Nice and invests all of that money into Manchester United, I would have a lot more respect for him. I really, really would. I just think when you've already tried to buy a football club, he bought the Swiss club Lausanne and he got them relegated after they were winning titles. He then goes to Nice, three top 4 finishes in the 4 seasons prior to him coming, and then he hasn't got one Champions League finish in the last 3 or 4 years of his ownership. I think he needs to focus on coming in, focusing all of his resources on Manchester United, all of his team fully on Manchester United, because it's such a big project. That's what needs to happen for me personally. But let me know what you guys think. Everyone as well who's just joined, please do make sure to smash a like on the video. We have got over 500 people watching, but we only have 100 likes. So please do smash a like. It doesn't cost any money. And do make sure to subscribe. Bottom right hand corner. And we have got some breaking news right here whilst we are live, and this is about the assistant manager Mitchell van der Gaag, and the story is coming out that Mitchell van der Gaag is apparently open to becoming the new Ajax manager. He is happy as assistant at Manchester United. He is happy as the assistant at Manchester United, but is convinced by Ajax. So if anybody is unaware of this, it looks like Ajax are set to sack their manager, and apparently Mitchell van der Gaag is one of the top people in the shortlist for the job. I think this could be bad for Erik ten Hag. I do. We saw what happened to Mourinho when he lost his assistant. That was when Mourinho's sparkle kind of lost and he started to go downwards. So hopefully this doesn't happen, because who would become Erik ten Hag's assistant? I think that assistant managers don't get enough credit. I think they actually do a lot more work than what, us fans actually make of them. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. But that one is breaking news that's just come out in the last couple of seconds. Let's see what else people are saying. Danny says Nice and the Swiss team could be our feeder clubs. Yeah, that is a possibility. Milas says Barca are interested in Jadon Sancho as well. Eric says, watch the Beckham documentary and compare our current squad to that one. I'm furious. Yes, I agree with that as well. Irvin says, Sir Jim Ratcliffe at the wheel. I'm sick thinking about it. I'll tell you this, right? Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos at the wheel, it doesn't make me sick. It doesn't. Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos and the Glazers at the wheel, that makes me sick. I have no issue whatsoever with Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in and buying all of the club. Zero issue with that. I don't. Okay? Yes, I think that Sheikh Jassim and all the rest of it sounded great, but if he was buying 100% of the club, I genuinely think he'd do a better job than the Glazers. I just think that he's going to have his hands tied behind his back with only 25%. So I hope that there is some truth in this story that we spoke about for most of the show about the Wall Street Journal and that he wants 50%, because I think it does change things for me. Let's have a look at what the poll is saying. So far, 68% of you say no if Sir Jim Ratcliffe has 50%. It doesn't make you happy. And the other 32% say yes, it would make you happy. I mean, that is a bit of a shift in mood, isn't it? And I do agree. Scott says, is it true about the extra security at Old Trafford? Yes. So apparently, ahead of the Copenhagen game, which is a week tomorrow, Champions League, 8 o'clock kickoff. We will, of course, be doing a watch along for that. Manchester United will be stepping up the security. They will be stepping up security at Old Trafford ahead of that because they are expecting protests. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. But I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined me on the show this evening. Please do make sure to smash a like on the video before you go. Please do subscribe if this is your first time watching. Bottom right-hand corner to do that. I will be back live at 8:30 a.m. UK time tomorrow. If anything breaks between then and now, I always go live, so make sure that notification bell is on. Big ups to everyone who's watched the show this evening. This has been Daily Red Devil, and I'll speak to you all later.